Hello, my name is Steve Kirby, and I'm about to embark on a campaign. And the first step in this campaign is to do some videos. Now, who I am is not important, but it's probably important that you know my motivations for this. The purpose of my campaign is to attempt to try and turn the tide of the surveillance culture that we have in the West, and in particularly in my own country, the United Kingdom. Now, this is a bit late in the day to be trying to do anything about it, but they say better late than never. So here I am. Now, the reasons for me doing this are, from the obvious to the really arcane and personal. But one of the reasons for it is that I don't believe that anybody else is doing it. Now, I wish that I didn't have to do this. I wish I didn't have to. The country I grew up in was a free country, and that's the way I liked it. And I suppose, like everybody else, I took it for granted. But in the last, well, I suppose in the last 20 years, I've begun to see that change. And I don't like it. And I made the mistake of believing that other people would keep things as they were and ensure that my country remained a free country. I thought that it was my freedoms were guaranteed, and they, having been bequeathed to me by previous generations, I thought they were always safe. Now I know that's not the case. It has occurred to me that, and this should have occurred to me much earlier, is that freedom comes about due to the actions of individual human beings. It doesn't come about automatically. And that was my mistake. I thought because I lived in a free country that it would always be so. And I was mistaken. Now I know that I've got quite a mountain to climb. I started late. It's difficult to know how many other people agree with me. At first glance, it would appear that most people don't agree with me. But I'm not sure that that's true. You see, I believe that most people believe, as I did, that this country would always be a free country, and that the job had already been done, that it was secure. Probably done by the people in the wartime generation, or even the people who fought the Cold War. And so that job was done, and they didn't have to do it. And so we could reap the rewards of living in a prosperous society and not pay too much attention to whether or not it was free or not. And that's where the taking for granted comes in. I took it for granted, and I believe an awful lot of other people take it for granted as well. Like I say, I'm starting late in the day, and I've got my work cut out. You know, I mean, I'm going to be taking. This is the first of my videos. There are going to be many more. Uh, but you know, is anybody going to watch them? You know, am I going to get many views or many subscribers, or is the groundswell of the change of opinion that I hope for ever going to happen? It's probably unlikely. I'm hoping also to do some talks, some lectures in venues, and probably I'll struggle to get people to come and listen to me there as well. But that's not a reason for not doing it. The reason for doing it is not a guarantee of success. That should not be the reason. The reason I'm doing it is because I believe in it, and I believe that free societies need to be maintained. And we haven't been maintaining them. You know, we happily stroll on past as more and more surveillance cameras be put up in the street. And because they don't physically impede our progress, we think it comes at no cost. Well, it does come at a cost. And if we don't change course, we'll find out what that course is when it's too late. So, my reasons are those that I've just stated, but they're also, I wanted there to be a record that I disagree with the way things are going, that I fundamentally disagree with the surveillance state, and I fundamentally disagree with the idea that free citizens should be spied upon by the governments that they elect. Apart from anything else, I don't think that it's necessary, apart from the problem of lack of principle there. So those are my wider reasons. I'm inspired in a way, and this is no endorsement of the man at all, but I'm inspired in a way by Nigel Farage, who, whatever you think of his politics, and I'm not going to tell you right what I think, but he has managed to turn the world upside down. 15 years ago, he was a crank, and look what's changed. So it is possible, and anything's possible if you try, but it won't be possible if I don't try. And I feel grateful that I was bequeathed a free country, and I feel that myself and my generation have squandered it. And I don't want to pass on to future generations a country that is worse. And by worse, I mean less free. I'm going to go into the details of why surveillance makes us less free for the benefit of any of those who don't see it. And sometimes it's not obvious. But the people who advocate surveillance are those in authority, law enforcement. And in law enforcement in particular, Their job is law enforcement. Their job is not to maintain a free society. So we can't really blame them, even though in essence I believe them to be my enemy. Um, I mean, I don't believe them to be a malign enemy, but they're an enemy nonetheless. Um, so their job is to create order, but our job, and and the job we have singularly been not been doing, is to maintain our free society. That's our job as citizens, and we've not been doing it. And I feel ashamed of that because I've not been doing it. I mean, I've been worrying about this for 20 years, and it's not getting any better, it's getting worse. And we're getting deeper and deeper into a society of total surveillance. Now, we can't turn the clock back, we can't uninvent technology, but we can change the argument, and we can change the idea of the desirability of that. And that's what I'm aiming to do, because trying to uninvent things is like trying to push the tide back, and I know that I can't do that. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to wake people up and allow them to see the value in a society that has extensive degrees of privacy and anonymity, and to show them the dangers of the opposite. Now, sometimes I'm going to be patronising, lecturing, and sometimes I'm going to get angry, and my abilities to persuade to begin with will be limited, but I'm hoping that they will grow, and I'm hoping that I'll become better at this. But in the meantime, it's often going to seem like a rant, and it's going to seem incoherent. But I am convinced of the rightness of my cause. There is also and it's connected, but there is a personal issue here as well, in that next month I'm going to be 50 years old. 50. I never thought that would happen. But nevertheless, and as I say, I've been worrying about this for 20 years, but so basically I've not done anything about it for 20 years. I've just moaned and worried and got anxious. I mean, I've got into a fair few arguments, but I'm not sure that counts really. But as I say, I don't think anyone else is doing this. I mean, there are other people who are doing this, but I just don't think wider society appreciates the nightmare that we're heading for. I mean, everybody's concerned with the economy and the NHS and Brexit and all of these things. But I believe that, with the possible exception of climate change, this is the most important issue there is. Climate change is probably more important because it's important to us as animals, as organic beings, to live on this planet. But as human beings, with a consciousness, I don't think there's anything more important. Because to live as a human as a human being, as a free human being, is a fundamental. It doesn't get much more fundamental than that, to live freely without being under surveillance. And I don't want to live my life under surveillance, and also I don't want other people to have to live under surveillance, and I don't want the next generation to live under surveillance. Now, I understand that people say, and these are things that I'll go into in more detail subsequently, that we need to guard against those that would do us harm. And I accept that. But those that the risk of those that would do us harm is actually really quite tiny if looked at in a historical perspective, even historical back to the Second World War. In the Second World War, we had 500 people a night being killed. You know, recently we've had a spate of people being killed all over Europe. You know, even in Britain, we've had a pretty miserable time of it over the last 3 or 4 months. And those people need to be stopped. But we don't close down our free society just so that we can catch them. You know, our free society is the strongest thing we have. So the way I'm going to approach this is unclear at the moment. I'm just feeling my way. I have no previous experience to this. I'm just a nobody, just a citizen, and I'm no expert on surveillance or politics or geopolitics or anything else, or the law or the constitution or anything like that. But I am an expert of someone who used to live in a free country, and hopefully still does. But I am an expert of somebody who knows when it's under threat. And it is under threat. Our biggest threat is not from Islamist terrorists, but it's from our own government. I believe it was an American said, and this is one of my favourite quotes: a patriot must always be willing to defend his country against its government. And that's key, because the government is not the country. And to protest against the government is not to protest against your own country. It is not unpatriotic to protest. And sometimes I think people mistake the two. So like I say, next month I'm going to be 50. For 20 years I've dithered and I've wrung my hands about this, and I've hoped that there would be more libertarians would enter government and it would turn it around, and we would have people in government who believed in the nobility of a free population, free to go about their business, and the important things in a democracy would be maintained. A free society. But in order to defend our society, supposedly against those who want to kill us, it seems to be a one-trick pony for those in charge. They do something to us, they respond by putting everybody under surveillance rather than targeting the people who are likely to do us harm. They put every one of us under scrutiny and watch us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, forever. Now, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live in a country like that. That's not the country I was born in. And it very definitely is not the country that I want to die in or to bequeath to future generations. Because it's future generations which will bear the cost of this. At the moment, we're getting it nice. We're getting all this surveillance nice and free. It's not interfering with us too much at the moment. We don't notice it. We accept it, and we still go about our business. You know, we don't have to go through checkpoints. We don't have secret policemen coming up to us in the street and doing this, which all through the Cold War, everybody knew what that meant. Your papers. So we all have to walk around with our papers like it was Nazi fucking Germany or the Soviet Union. I mean, this is Britain, for Christ's sake. You know, have we forgotten what our society is supposed to be like? As I say, I'm getting ahead of myself. You know, our society is not like that yet. But that's where we're heading. Because knowledge is power. And those in power want power. And the way they have power over us is to know everything about us. And through CCTV, automatic number plate recognition, reading of our emails, who we telephone, who telephones us, where we go, who we meet, what we say on social media, for instance. All of this builds up a picture of the type of person we are. And once they know the type of person we are, they're going to know our weak points, and they're going to know how to get us into line. And that's where all this surveillance is going, to get everybody into line. If there is anybody out there who's interested in this, I would urge you to read George Orwell's 1984. And if you haven't read it since you were a child, read it again. You don't have to be a genius to look at the similarities between our society and that one. We're not there yet. But they got there in the book by the construction of the total surveillance infrastructure. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we are allowing to be built. Apart from anything else, we're paying for it. That's what really sticks in my craw. So I'm going to rant and rave, and I'm going to get upset, and I'm not going to be well prepared, and I'm not going to master the technology because I'm 50 and not 15. And my videos are going to be disjointed, and they're going to be unprofessional, and they're not going to hold together sometimes, and I'm going to miss points, and basically I'm going to do everything wrong. But I am going to do something. Because when I'm dead and buried, I want someone to know that I did something. that I tried to stop it. So when somebody looks at the life of Steve Kirby and says, well, what did he do? What did he do to stop it? At least they can say, well, he did something. He did try. But like I say, I wish I didn't have to do this. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to say this about my own country, a country that I love. A country that hasn't been particularly kind to me, and yet I love it all the same. The trouble is, it isn't the force of argument that has allowed our country to be the world's foremost surveillance state. It's just apathy. We've just let it happen. And we've let it happen, and it becomes normalised. And we get a bit more surveillance. And sometimes we might raise an eyebrow at it, and that's all. And then we get used to it. And then there's more. And then we raise another eyebrow. And then we get used to it again. You know, there is a real danger behind this, and it's very depressing that most people don't see it, even though it's there for everyone to see. I suppose you could technically say that we still live in a free country, but who wants to maintain that? If I get the feeling, if I were to ask 100 people in a room, do we live in a free country? I get the feeling that 2/3 of them will probably shrug their shoulders and say we don't. Probably because they don't want to be proved wrong. But whether or not they believe that or not, it's the shrugging of the shoulders which is so dispiriting. Maybe the question should be to ask, do we want to live in a free country? Because it seems like if you believe we don't live in a free country and you're not prepared to do anything about it, then maybe you don't want to live in a free country. That's something I can't understand. I can't understand it no matter how I try. But it does boil down to a very stark choice. A free society is a more dangerous one. And we have to sort of decide whether we want to be free or safe. Thus far, people have mostly proved that they want to be safe. Now, I want to be safe, but if I had to make a choice, and we do have to make a choice, I would always choose freedom over safety. That's always what I would do. Because what value is safety when you live in a padded prison cell? Anyway, till next time.